Well, hello everyone. Those of you who follow the cycle of conferences visualizations will be aware of the upcoming COP climate change conference in Brazil. With its focus on ecology and climate issues, it provides a great platform for people of goodwill to understand and to help others understand our universal responsibility for caring for the planet. So humanity as a whole needs to serve as a steward of the planet by drawing on the strengths of both heart and mind. And it's becoming clear to many thinking people that a better future will depend on using knowledge more wisely and responsibly. So instead of the exploitation of scarce resources for the immediate benefit of the few, more enlightened planning is needed in a spirit of shared community with the earth and all other forms of life. So later on, we'll be hearing from Lawrence Newey, who asks the question as to whether science and technology are helping us to integrate with nature. But before that, I thought it'd be good to reconsider some points from the Earth Charter. Humanity is part of a vast evolving universe. Earth, our home, is alive with a unique community of life. The forces of nature make existence a demanding and uncertain adventure. But Earth has provided the conditions essential to life's evolution. The resilience of the community of life and the well-being of humanity depend upon preserving a healthy biosphere with all its ecological systems, a rich variety of plants and animals, soils, pure water, clean air. The global environment, with its finite resources, is a common concern of all people. The protection of Earth's vitality, diversity, and beauty is a sacred trust. So this highlights our role as an intelligent intermediary between the higher states of planetary consciousness and the lower kingdoms of nature, and the response of individuals and groups today to protect this sacred trust is heartening. It is a recognition that requires a universal outlook and an awareness that planet Earth is a complex, integrated living system where all parts contribute to the greater whole. And evidence of this fragility of the Earth system is brought into sharp focus as a result of human activities. For example, when there's disintegration due to deforestation, industrial scale fishing, and toxic agriculture, depletion of the Earth's finite natural resources. And all of the parts of this complex system that constitutes planet Earth must be in good health for the system to flourish. Energies and forces in all of the kingdoms of nature, including human thought forms, have to circulate around the whole system for the common good and not be used selfishly. And the same principle applies to our individual circulatory system for the human body to function effectively. So taking a broader view, our planet is part of that great whole known as the solar system, with our local star, the sun, at its center. Life on Earth depends on sunlight. And from an esoteric perspective, it's said that all parts of the solar system are interdependent. All the forces and energies are in constant flux and mutation. Every form is linked with every other form. And science confirms that cosmic rays, high energy charged particles, originate in outer space and travel at nearly the speed of light and strike the Earth from all directions. So the ageless wisdom tradition, which has persisted throughout the rise and fall of civilizations, has long maintained the coherence of the universe, that everything is interrelated. And now there's recognition that since the time of the Industrial Revolution, the Earth's resources have been exploited and consumed as if they were infinite. The key factor in the shift of awareness seems to be related to the ability of the human mind to observe changes that are taking place on our planet. And so scientific advances enable humanity to stand back from the immediate events and to make detailed observations provided by satellite images of the planet, bringing evidence of changes, such as the contraction of the Arctic ice cap or melting glaciers, etc. We see the detached observer is at work, an observer who is able to see a bigger picture than before and use the intelligence of the mind and the understanding of the heart to increasingly become the spiritually sensitive observer. Whether this observer is religious, the scientist, the educator, the philosopher, the entrepreneur, or a politician, each is helping to shift human consciousness towards a more holistic viewpoint. Now, an exciting example of the detached observer is at work in the scientific field with a study of the Earth and its changing environment was developed as the Earth Observing System, the EOS initiative. According to the NASA website, since 1958, it has been observing the atmosphere, oceans, lands, ice, and snow, and their influence on climate and weather, and have realized that the key to gaining a better understanding of the global environment is exploring how the Earth's systems of air, land, water, and life interact with each other. This approach, called Earth System Science, blends together fields like meteorology, oceanography, biology, and atmospheric science, and it was followed by NASA's Earth Science, which studied the Earth as an environmental system, and through its use of satellites and other tools to study the Earth, it was hoped to expand understanding of how natural resources affect humanity and how humanity might be affecting them. And such study helps to improve weather forecasts and the management of agriculture and forests, and eventually the ability to predict climate change. So today's NASA's pioneering work is undertaken by other countries, such as the European Space Agency, for example. But in the light of this positive service by technology and in the spirit of the Earth Charter, World Goodwill supports the need for humanity to live with a sense of universal responsibility by, quote, identifying ourselves with the whole Earth community, as well as our local communities. Everyone shares responsibility for the present and future well-being of the human family and the larger living world. And the spirit of human solidarity and kinship with all life is strengthened when we live with reverence for the mystery of being, gratitude for the gift of life, and humility regarding the human place in nature. So moving forward, the question we ask ourselves is, can we transform our culture and simplify our whole way of life? Such a planetary change amounts to a fundamental shift in direction and requires the will to good to move in this direction. So Let's go on now into our Goodwill meditation to uphold this responsibility and our sense of relationship to the whole. Link up in thought with all people throughout the world who are working with this Goodwill meditation group. Reflect upon the fact of relationship. You are related to your family, your community, your nation, the world of nations, the one humanity, made up of all races and nations. And sound the mantra of unification. The souls of all are one, and I am one with them. I seek to love, not hate. I seek to serve, and not exact due service. I seek to heal, not hurt. Let pain bring due reward of light and love. Let the soul control the outer form, and life and all events, and bring to light the love that underlies the happenings of the time. Let inner vision come and insight. Let vision come and insight. Let the future stand revealed. Let inner union demonstrate, and outer cleavages be gone. Let love prevail. Let all people love. Reflect upon your own and humanity's relationship with all beings who dwell in the higher realms of mind and heart. The spiritual hierarchy of saints, rishis, bodhisattvas, and masters, honored by all the world's religions and spiritual groups. Imagine you are standing together within the center of the spiritual hierarchy, immersed in the consciousness of the heart of love. For some, this heart of love is known as the Christ. Other faiths have other names for the one at the center, such as Maitreya, the Imam Mahdi, and the Kalki Avatar. Maintaining that high point of contact, let your thoughts reach out to include all members of the human family in whom the energy of goodwill is active. In the center of all love I stand. From that center, I, the soul, will outward move. From that center, I, the one who serves, will work. May the love of the divine self be shed abroad in my heart, through my group, and throughout the world. Visualizing this energy of love flowing from the hierarchy through men and women of goodwill and into the hearts and minds of all people, infusing them with goodwill and creating loving and harmonious human relationships. Meditate on ways of spreading goodwill, creating right human relationships, and restoring peace on earth. Realize that you are helping to build a channel between the spiritual hierarchy and humanity, through which the energy of goodwill may flow, uniting humanity, solving its problems, and healing all differences and cleavages. Linked in thought with men and women of goodwill all over the world, will say the adapted Great Invocation with deliberation and full commitment to its meaning, knowing that you are radiating its potent energies into human consciousness. From the point of light within the mind of God, let light stream forth into human minds. Let light descend on earth. From the point of love within the heart of God, let love stream forth into human hearts. May the coming one return to earth. From the center, where the will of God is known, let purpose guide all little human wills, the purpose which the masters know and serve. From the center, which we call the human race, let the plan of love and light work out, and may it seal the door where evil dwells. Let light and love and power restore the plan on earth. Thank you, everyone, for that lovely meditation. I now have great pleasure in introducing you to Lawrence Newey of the Lucis Trust. And Lawrence, you're going to really ask the question about science and technology uniting, integrating with nature. Please carry on.
Well, first of all, thanks for having me. It's a great pleasure to be here. And I should point out that, as you have already, the title of the webinar is very much an open question, because integrating science, technology and nature, where that's actually going to lead us in the next 50, 100 years, who knows? You know, maybe people out there, maybe you've got some ideas about that, and we can exercise the group imagination, because technology and science is always going to progress, of course, and we can't, nor would we want to stop it. It's just a question of the motive more than anything else with which we use it that will determine the results. But here's a few thoughts anyway. If we look back since the dawn of the industrial age, the onward march of science and technology has brought undoubtedly great gifts to humanity, but it's further undermined the instinctive spiritual relationship that human beings once had with the land, the fauna and the flora. As the large-scale burning of fossil fuels began in earnest to power incredible new machines, it sparked the beginning of what can only be called a disintegrative worldview, which is now being directly reflected back at us through the Earth's polluted and dysfunctional ecosystems. Even so, it's only a perceived life threat to the whole of humanity, a common enemy in the form of global warming, that has caused sufficient alarm for the nations of the world to start rallying around the new mindset of sustainable development. And while we might say that this represents humanity waking up from its disintegrative dream state, it still has to adjust its vision to the dawn of a new day and see things in a different light. For the notion of sustainable development still remains connected to the mindset that placed humanity in its dire position in the first place. The concrete, scientific mindset of measurement, control, that can so easily isolate itself from the balancing, feminine energy of the intuitive mind. We might regard the current scientific approach as a transition period that may help to limit the damage, but as yet, it contains no real impelling vision, no narrative worthy of forming a new integrated worldview that unites masculine science with feminine nature. As the poet and political activist Muriel Rukeyse wrote, the universe is made of stories, not of atoms. Humanity thrives on narratives that give it a sense of place and perspective in the scheme of things. The public speaker and author Charles Eisenstein is a good example of the many scientifically minded storytellers who are building bridges from the dominating mindset of controlling global warming through the reduction of carbon emissions towards a new way of thinking about nature altogether. Acknowledging that global culture is immersed in a destructive story of separation, his work presents a story of interbeing, drawing on ideas from Eastern philosophy and indigenous peoples. He writes of an emerging understanding among many environmentalists that we have made a scientific, strategic, rhetorical, and political error by reducing the ecological crisis to climate and the climate crisis to carbon. Earth is best understood as a living being with a complex physiology, whose health depends on the health of her constituent organs. Her organs are the forests, the wetlands, the grasslands, the estuaries, the reefs, the apex predators, the keystone species, the soil, the insects, and indeed every intact ecosystem and every species on Earth. He continues, if we continue to degrade them, drain them, cut them, poison them, pave them, and kill them, Earth will die a death of 1,000,000 cuts. She will die of organ failure, regardless of the levels of greenhouse gases. He goes on to say conservation does not mean to use more slowly or to save for later. What the word really means is to serve with, to serve together. But to serve what? To serve life. It is a rhetorical error to frame environmentalism in any other way than to make it about love of nature, love of life. So this raises the interesting question of how do we serve nature in an evolutionary sense? What's her goal? How can science and technology fit into the picture in a wholly positive way? This question is intriguing, especially in the light of esoteric teachings, as becomes apparent from this passage from the Alice Bailey writings. The next 2,500 years will bring about so much change and make possible the working of so many so-called miracles that even the outer appearance of the world will be profoundly altered. The vegetation, the animal life will be modified and developed, and much that is latent in the forms of both kingdoms will be brought into expression through the freer flow and the more intelligent manipulation of the energies which create and constitute all forms. Since this was written in the 1930s, humanity's creative powers surged, and science and technology's manipulation of the mineral kingdom has moved on to the forms of the fauna, flora, and even the microbial life of the planet. In fact, the whole concept of biotechnology encompasses a range of procedures for modifying living organisms for human purposes. A practice that has its origins in the domestication of animals and the cultivation of plants has progressed step by step through the ages to the fledgling new science of synthetic biology. This is no less than the design or the redesign of biology itself, the vision being a world-changing, world-saving green technology. However, the legitimacy of treating living nature as just another material for engineering needs to be of greater concern. It needs to be of greater concern to humanity. While bioethicists, social scientists, policymakers, and risk experts are deliberating the many new issues that are arising from biotechnology, the overall path of development, the direction it should take, and whose interest it should be taken in are not discussed as frequently and as openly as they should be. This concern is being highlighted by the artist and designer Dr. Alexandra Daisy Ginsberg, who's known for artworks that explore the relationship between humans, technology, and nature. Her work is an examination of the human impulse to design a better world. Design is the transmission of ideas through things, she says. But how do we judge if new ideas are good things when the designs themselves become invisible? This comment refers to the new path of bioengineering, which rather than creating tangible products, designs changes in the way that nature behaves over time. From the perspective of esoteric science, the answer as to whether an idea is a good thing or not lies in the last part of the passage quoted from Alice Bailey's writings. And the question, does it help to bring into expression that which is latent in any particular life form and seeking expression? While it's difficult for humanity to even understand the meaning of this question at its current stage of development, the fact that there are many ethical debates taking place in the life sciences these days is surely an encouraging sign. Ultimately, it's the purpose behind humanity's actions that decides whether an action is morally good or not. And this is where the importance of Dr. Ginsberg's work lies, in using her art and design work to ask disruptive questions and stimulate debate on what better actually means in the context of creating a better world. The imperative of our times, she says, is to ask better questions about the path humanity is on. It is to use human creativity to solve better problems, not to be constantly addressing problems arising from wrong relationships with the planetary environment. To give a practical example, our latest installation is called Machine Auguries. It's actually a little while ago now, but it's fairly recent. And that was at the Toledo Museum of Art. And this addressed the crisis of dwindling bird populations over the decades due to the effects of noise and light pollution. The installation asks the question, what will there be without birds? At the start, a lighting array mimics the colours of a sunrise. And as the hues begin to shift, a robin sings, only to receive a machine-generated response. Eventually, only a machine-generated dawn chorus remains, and the spectator is left under the bright light of the gallery to experience being in the absence of nature and the innermost questions and feelings that arise from this. This and many other of Daisy Ginsberg's installations address some of the many problems that are arising from the conflicted relationship we have with nature and technology, and the growing overlap between the real and the unreal. Can humanity grasp the opportunity that this presents to re-examine what it wants and values in life? Can the future see the emergence of an integrated world vision that embraces the perspective of ecologists like Charles Eisenstein, who see the Earth as a living superorganism and use science and technology to serve her by stimulating her further involvement? To answer this, as with all the many problems of humanity, it lies in the growth of goodwill. The will is the most powerful force in the universe, and when human will is correctly aligned with the divine will, it is an unstoppable force. And as the force of goodwill is applied to all forms in all kingdoms of nature, so might we see the steady forward march towards the abstract superphysical levels of reality, and that which is sitting atop Plato's hierarchy of being as the ultimate form, the form of the good. Thanks.
Thank you so much, Lawrence. Here I am. There's so many things to comment on, and I'm sure that everybody has a lot of questions or just their own observations to share with us. I'm still getting over the machine-generated dawn chorus. It's just such an awful thing to contemplate. But I mean, it's already happened in many ways, because I remember somebody saying that in Japan, in certain of the cities, you just don't hear birds anymore. And to me, that's such a terrible thing. I just can't even get my head around it. But let's move on to bigger thoughts.
But just to mention something there, I think everybody, I think, would obviously say the same thing. What a terrible thing to lose the dawn chorus and to move into this technological age without nature there. But I think it's a little bit about like the boiled frog syndrome. The story of you put a frog into a saucepan of water, apparently. I don't know if anybody actually tried it. And you slowly turn the temperature up, the frog just boils. It won't attempt to get out of the water because it doesn't really know what's happening, and it's too late by the time it does. And I think that's very much the ailing predicament that humanity's in, that it's slowly happening and we're not standing apart from it and looking at it as the detached observer. We're part of it. And that's very dangerous because we're slowly slipping and losing our perspective. And will the time come when, slowly, bit by bit, nature is replaced, as is happening at this moment?
Yes, indeed. Does anybody want to raise their hand and ask a question, or perhaps share some of your own thoughts arising out of the talk? Somebody's got here a wonderful resource is the Presencing Institute, leading from the emerging future. I don't know, is that a book? That's MIT's leading from the emerging future, and there's a link to it.
Well, so there's a lot of great thinking out there, and this is seeding the sort of mental atmosphere. And there are a lot of people, intelligent people, talking about it. But at the same time, the current mantra is "drill, baby, drill," isn't it? And how do we cope with that? It's very disappointing that we should all be able to see the general effects. Even if you don't believe in global warming as a man-made thing, and to be honest, I've got an esoteric perspective on that matter. Nevertheless, that's what science believes at this time, and it gives us a common enemy to integrate and bring humanity together. But it's not just about global warming. It's, if you actually look at the polluted state of the planet, it's a symbol of our consciousness. And that, I think, is the most worrying thing. If we look to somewhere like Chernobyl, when humanity's taken out of the situation, despite the terrible nuclear disaster that happened there, life and nature is thriving again. So I'm not overly concerned about nature. I think it's a homeostatic thing and that it can readjust itself. The important thing is the consciousness of humanity stepping up to the mark and cleansing the way that it looks at nature and each other, for that matter. And when consciousness is adjusted, then everything will flow from that and bring a more harmonious state of affairs. Well, that's my view anyway.
Yeah, it's also interesting when countries or people act so irresponsibly or selfishly. It almost makes a lot of people more inclined to goodwill, to say, look, I'm not going down to that level. That's not going to define my family and my community. And so it's an interesting development when you look at it from that angle. We've got a few questions from Peter. Peter, go ahead and unmute yourself.
Hi, Chris. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear.
Excellent. Thank you so much. Lawrence, great talk today. A few questions, and again, looking at things more from an esoteric perspective. Part of the things that I tend to ponder is where are we going? Because when we know where we're going, we can get there faster. We can accelerate the rate at which we arrive. And so, as a civilization, as a collective, as a planet as well, from a planetary perspective, what is our evolutionary path? What is the destination, so to speak? And we know from an esoteric perspective that we are supposed to get into the seventh root race. And so I say that to say that certain things that we experience on Earth, for example, part of the challenges that we can talk about, as a point B to point A, where are we going, is of course the alignment of the planet as a tonal alignment would also help to bring that radiation to reduce the amount of distortion we have in the cosmic plane, in the etheric dimension. So also when we cleanse out the etheric, that's another challenge that we face, the distortion that we have as a result of the negative thought forms and feeling forms that are affecting, to your point, Lawrence, that the challenge that we face as a humanity is consciousness level beyond just what we see in manifested in the material dimension. So when we are able to cleanse the etheric field, the astral belt, or the effluvia, the discord, we begin to see abundance, because the cosmic light can flow evenly into the material dimension. And then also talking about biomimicry, how we can also learn from how nature builds and constructs in order for us to expedite the rate of our evolution. And then one more point I wanted to talk on regards to what ideas are good. To your point, ideas that heal, ideas that help, ideas that cultivate the true nature of being, and again, help to get us to a point of destination where we are all, light beings. We know that the end destination is light. Essentially, our planet should evolve to become a sun in the solar system. So just my 2 cents of contribution, and how we convert our free will to divine, to God's will, to your point, goodwill, God's will, so that we're in alignment with the masters on the plan of evolution. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes, where are we going? It's a good question. I presume that most of the people watching today have some degree of esoteric perspective on this, and we know the whole evolution of the earth. Everything, in fact, is about transmutation and redemption. And the problem at the moment is that all of our energy is coming from the past, is one way of looking at it. It's not a good way. of using energy. I think certainly in the Ageless Wisdom teachings, we often get quite excited about new forms of energy. And I think when the consciousness of humanity is right and deserving of it, then that's going to come about and things will change dramatically then. We sometimes refer to the work of a few different scientific researchers. One is Orion Energy, but the other is the latest one, Malcolm Bendall, I believe it is, who's bringing out his thunderstorm generator. But my point is that new forms of energy that being taken from the ethers is getting very close now. And I think that will be the game changer. Not so much, just considering in terms of, a safe new technology that is green, but because it's transmutative. Orion Energy's devices, they transmute the elements, and this brings back alchemy on a higher turn of the spiral. So I think the future lies in the right use of energy applied to form and to matter to create transmutation. And the whole science of that and the unfolding of that will help us to understand the evolutionary journey much better. And what's interesting at the moment, just for those just focusing on the actual green issue, in our Lucis Trust General Letter, we highlighted the fact that China have just started up a thorium nuclear reactor, which is situated in the Gobi Desert. And it was brought to life about a month or so ago. And it's known as the Great Green Hope of Energy. And it's far, far more productive and fuel efficient. And it doesn't use uranium, it uses thorium. And it cannot have meltdowns, and it produces no weapons grade products. And the fact that China is putting so much energy into this as a source for the future, I think even that is a great step forward. And thorium itself is a key element, and that's one that many of the people in search of new energy sources are working with as well. So I do believe that we're on the cusp of big changes. Because if you think to yourself, and if a new form of energy comes through, it's not so much about, for my mind, what that means in terms of free, cheap energy. It's in what does that mean geopolitically? If we actually think through that conundrum, and the way that the nations are currently fighting each other over oil. It brings in so many different things, from geopolitics to philosophy to a green environment. So I think there's much hope in the future.
Thanks, Lawrence. I'm sorry to chip in there. We've got quite a few people wanting to discuss a few things with you. So moving on to Janice Dolly. Hi, Janice.
Hello. Thank you.
Hello.
Well,
Nice.
Hi.
That's all very inspiring. Thank you for both your talks. But I think there's been a plethora of awareness of what's going on now. So many organizations I'm connected with are all saying very similar things. But what I feel we need is a sort of link up of groups, a movement of movements that would really help this to be a worldwide energy forward, that we want the spiritual dimension included, that we want ecological concerns included. So I'm wondering if you have any thoughts on how we could have a bigger message that would actually touch politicians and would give precedence to those putting their names forward for election, for those who were trying to help the earth. There seems to be so much separation and division. I'm just wondering what thoughts you have on hoping synergy to occur.
Well, it's a difficult question, because in all areas of human endeavour at the moment, we need new movements, in thought, in politics, economics, looking after the planet. So how does this rise up? There are movements, and many of them are integrated into bigger movements, but we're not quite at that Berlin Wall moment yet, where we reach that threshold where something breaks through. But I think we are getting there slowly in, the dire situation in world politics, for instance, may be a good thing because we need a real heavy crisis to wake us up. But as far as looking towards, a green movement, then I would suggest perhaps something like a party like the Green Party. I mean, I've always been fairly down the middle of the road in politics, but now, although I don't agree with all necessarily the policies of the Green Party, for instance, I think, well, that's where my sympathies lie more than anything at this time, and we need something radical now. The middle path hasn't worked, and so I would say something. What about the ecological parties now called the Green Party throughout Europe? They're thriving to a certain extent. Could we get a better movement than something like that? What do you think about that, Janice?
Well, I think that it just takes enough of us to push. And then I'm a great believer in the 100th monkey effect. But of course, we don't know where the 100th monkey, who or what that will be. But if we all keep pushing forward, there will be a shift, I think. Yes.
Thank you, Janice. Maria Christina? Maria's been there so long that her hand
hear me?
is on a funny color. Oh. Yes, we can hear you.
Very deep gratitude to both of you for this inclusive perspective that has been given, Christine. The explosion of the human population seems to me to be core to all the challenges we are facing, really, including from energy usage on through to the, how we use our planet. And from less than 2 billion in the days of my youth to 8 billion now and growing. I just wondered if you had any insights or comments on this great explosion of human monads, if you will, now all coming into incarnation at this time. It just seems to underlie so much of this white elephant in the room.
Yeah, how can we stop that?
Yes,
there are several ways, but I don't know if there's any that we could enforce. But it is interesting, isn't it, when you look back to, go back 1,000 years, 2,000 years, the time of Christ, the world population, below 1 million at that time, I would imagine. And it's escalating all the time. Esoteric teachings say there's about 60 billion monads,
right.
and more of them are down here. So those inner planes are becoming scarcely populated. But it's interesting. It makes you wonder what it is exactly that determines the whole process of rebirth. There's so many factors, but the pull, the desire nature, the pull of humanity's desire nature, and the desire to come into incarnation and experience Earth life is clearly very strong. And it's very strong at this time. But it's all... It's difficult to know the answers to any of these questions. The whole problem of reincarnation and rebirth, and how much time is required in between birth and reincarnation to assimilate the experiences of life existence, come into the fray too.
I sometimes wonder, the reappearance of the Christ, which is so dear to so many of us, and yet so few were present 2,000 years ago. So I sometimes wonder if this whole concept of the reappearance of the Christ is so foreign to many people, because I just really wonder if people are incarnating for the first time. 8 billion people, as I try and figure out looking back. Anyway, there's just...
Yeah.
I think quite a few of our politicians are incarnating for the first time. But Seriously though, well, the desire nature is rampant, isn't it, at the moment? And to a certain extent, perhaps with all, we know there's so much energy coming into the planet at the moment, and the more energy that comes in, the more the desire body of humanity is going to be stimulated. So you could say there's a lot of exhaust gases at the moment in the astral nature.
Maybe it has to do with the shifting of the sacral to the throat center for our planetary logos. I don't know, but thank you. Yeah.
Well, I think so. And, somehow we're surviving at the moment. But despite all this astralism that we're seeing throughout the planet and wrong human relations, there is a greater force countering that, because for every wrongdoing on the planet by people who are doing things unthinkingly, there are also people who are thinking, and the power of their thinking is much stronger and more powerful. So I think it is bringing in the right energies, but it's like a white knuckle ride, as they call them at this time. But it's something that we're going through in this transition period, and you have to ask yourself every day, there's so many events happening in the world. Again, it's because of all the energy. The more energy that hits the planet, then the more events there will be. So acceleration is the theme of the day. And the time has to come, I would imagine, where we can't bear the energy anymore. And slowly we'll start to extricate ourselves from this problem as we start to look for less astral forms of satisfaction, shall we say.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you both. Thank you, Maria. Michael, have we got time to take one or two more? Or
I mean, I would say so, but it's up to you, Chris, really. Yeah.
Wendy, unmute yourself.
Hello?
Hello.
Yeah, hi. I didn't know there seems to be a problem with raising the hand. It keeps saying lower hand, and someone else had a problem. But anyway, it did indicate in the end. Just slightly different. I just keep thinking, especially regarding nature and technology, what certain literary writers like D.H. Lawrence, John Steinbeck and Hemingway in particular would make of what's going on now. And I know that with D.H. Lawrence, although there's a tendency to think, oh, it's just all sexual, actually, his writing is very prophetic, and he very much opposed the Industrial Revolution and what it was actually doing to people. He termed monkeys minding machinery in one of his poems. And he wrote a short sort of story, and it was all about how the birds had gone. There was a terrible winter and there wasn't a bird anywhere. And then when he went into the country, he found all these dead birds. And it's very atmospheric. It really is quite chilling, as you were saying at the beginning about fabricated birdsong. It's a horrible thought. So really, it was that's all I wanted to say, that I was bringing that into it, because and the other thing that I want to say is that I've just finished reading Science and the Ageless Wisdom, which to me is a new book on the list, and I would recommend anyone reading that. I don't see myself as a scientific person particularly, but I found that as a compilation that's put together in such a way that it really makes sense, a lot of sense. And although there's no prediction on the technology, the other predictions that are in there are really interesting. yeah, that was all. Thank you.
Let me throw back perhaps a contentious thought at you, Wendy.
Yeah.
'Cause I like the Industrial Revolution. I think it was a dramatic increase to the pace of evolution. In the Alice Bailey books, for instance, there's mention of the effect that all the explosions during the Second World War and the metals, the forging of metals and the disintegrating, the bombing, all of that was doing to the mineral monad, created quite an evolutionary acceleration in the mineral kingdom. And I think that's very true. You know, it's in one sense, the physical plane isn't a principle. So just as we know the physical body is just something for us to experience the earth, we shouldn't be sitting down making it look beautiful all the time and pampering it, which some people do all the time. But it's not a principle. So it's an automaton, and the etheric body is where all the real stuff's going on. And I think that we could extend that to the physical plane. Beautiful though nature is, for the Logos, it's not a principle. So it's a medium of experience. And so if we are causing destruction to it, at the end of the day, I wonder how much that matters if we get to the other end of it and we learn the lessons that we are getting from the karmic payback. Because as soon as consciousness is adjusted and becomes more harmonious, I believe the earth will take care of itself. So in that sense, I think that all the developments in science and technology are not such a bad thing. And out of the Industrial Revolution, of course, we've moved into industries now which are far, far less noisy and far less guilty of spewing out so much pollution, or could be in the future. So we can get out of this situation, as for instance, as I've spoken about some of the developments that may be on the threshold, and China's move to look after the environment. It's a big country that's involved in environmental awareness. I think there are good and positive signs there. So on the whole, while I would love to live in on a beautiful planet, I think it can also be said that we are living through a transition period. Just take a look at Venus. You know, Venus is on fire with sulfuric acid and methane, and yet their humanity is a round and a half ahead of us, isn't it?
Thank you, Lawrence. That's an enormous subject, but fantastic observations. I just want to get to Catherine Cruz as our last speaker, because I think every time Catherine has been on World Goodwill webinar when I've been present, I haven't actually got to you, Catherine. So please go ahead.
Well, thank you. Thank you, Christine. I feel like every time I raise my hand, I talk about the great invocation, but that is such a powerful consciousness evolving world prayer that we've been given, and every one of us here can use it to that end. And you talked, Christine, that we create an energy, and that energy comes before the manifestations that we see. And so here we have something that every one of us can do. You don't have to go out and carry a No King's banner or write to your politicians. Just remember every day to use the great invocation. And the way the world works, the way transformation works, is that invocative appeal is always evocative. It always evokes from the higher. So, well, that's my passionate plea for today. And maybe we could look at the Great Invocation website. The new one is just beautiful. So
Thank you.
Interestingly,
much.
do you recall that the first effect of the correct mass use of the Great Invocation is acceleration? And if we look around the world today, I think there's quite a bit of that going on. So, perhaps, it's having its effect.
I think
Yes,
there's no perhaps.
Yes. Well, thank you all. It's a lovely webinar. Thank you, Lawrence, for all those comments and discussion. I think we better leave because we're a bit late. And before we're doing so, I just want to remind everybody about the World Goodwill Seminar that's on Saturday, the 15th of November, 10 o'clock in Geneva, 2 o'clock GMT in London, and 2 o'clock, is it EDT, in New York. So please join us if you can. And here are the upcoming meetings. And grateful thanks for you all for attending today. Thank you and good night. Thank you, Lawrence.